Welcome back, Aurelius and Malik, the Treaty Archive. We close the Concordat of Worms file today. 5 parts. The end of the story. A single agreement resolved decades of conflict, but did it truly change history? Scholars have debated this for generations. The Concordat of Worms, signed in 1122, ended the investiture controversy. This was a significant struggle over who held authority, the Pope or the Emperor. The stakes were enormous, as both church and state were grappling for dominance.
That's a valid point, Aurelius. But framing it simply as a conflict overlooks the human cost involved. For decades, leaders and common people alike suffered through excommunications, civil wars, and political intrigue. The question isn't just who won or lost. It's about the turmoil experienced by those caught in the middle. The legacy is far more personal than it appears.
You're absolutely right about the human element. But let's not forget that the Concordat was designed to bring resolution, and it did, at least for a time. This agreement established dual investiture, which meant bishops were chosen by clergy, but only in the emperor's presence. It was a significant shift in church-state relations, a compromise that sought to balance power. In a way, it was a calculated gamble aimed at fostering stability in a turbulent era.
A gamble? Perhaps. But a calculated one for the elite only. The people had little say in this arrangement, and while it provided temporary stability, it didn't erase the centuries-old tensions. Kings in France and England were watching closely, ready to assert their own influence over ecclesiastical appointments. They were waiting for the right moment to pounce.
True enough. The framework established at Worms allowed for a fragile coexistence, but it didn't really cement authority for either side. For a time, both the papacy and the Holy Roman Empire respected their boundaries. But this uneasy peace was like a thin layer of ice over a turbulent river. History teaches us that stability is often just a veneer, hiding deeper conflicts beneath. Sooner or later, those tensions will rise to the surface, and we know what happens next.
Exactly. The Concordat was really more of a fragile truce than a real solution. Soon after, we saw new movements spring up, like the Cathars and Waldensians. They started questioning the established authority, and that laid the groundwork for future upheavals. Those unresolved tensions didn't just fade away. They simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to turn into the chaos of the Protestant Reformation. It's a reminder of how people's struggles can spark massive change.
And yet, the Concordat did have lasting influence. Its principles of negotiation set a precedent for future treaties. Take the Peace of Augsburg in 1555, for example. It sought to manage religious pluralism in the Holy Roman Empire. This agreement was a significant step towards coexistence. We can see how the framework for compromise laid out at Worms resonated in later discussions. It allowed various factions to find common ground, which is essential for stability in any empire.
Let's not forget the Concordat of 1801 between Napoleon and the papacy. It redefined church-state relations in revolutionary France. This demonstrates that the questions raised at Worms were not confined to a single era. The struggle over authority, power, and faith continued to evolve, shaping modern political theory. The echoes of Worms resonate even today.
Indeed, the legacy of the Concordat extends beyond its immediate context. The separation of spiritual and temporal authority laid groundwork for modern constitutional law. This was no small feat. It suggested that rulers could not claim absolute authority over the souls of their subjects, a radical idea for its time, and yet it resonates today.
But Aurelius, let's not overlook the cost of that radical idea. For the Church, the Concordat was a hard-won victory, yes, but it came at a price. The spiritual independence gained was not absolute. It was still subject to the whims of power politics. The Empire preserved some control, but the tension never truly went away. Both sides lost something significant.
A fair observation. The balance of power shifted, but the contest for authority certainly continued. The Concordat provided a framework for dialogue, yet it was never a definitive answer. We saw nations learn a vital lesson. Diplomacy could reshape borders and allegiances, even if the underlying questions persisted. History doesn't close the book. It keeps turning the pages, and we're all players in an ongoing narrative. This is the nature of our world.
And that's where we find ourselves today. The lessons of the Concordat echo in every discussion about the balance of church and state. We can't ignore those unresolved questions. They remind us that history is always unfolding, always in motion. We keep revisiting those ancient struggles, the ones that started long before Worms and will continue to shape our lives long after. It's about real people, their hopes, their fears, and the very human cost of these debates.
In essence, the Concordat of Worms wasn't merely a treaty. It was an invitation to engage in a dialogue about the intricate balance of power and faith. It illustrated that even amid deep-rooted conflict, there existed a potential path forward. This moment in history serves as a reminder that compromise and understanding can emerge from strife. We must consider this legacy as it shows us the complex dance of authority and belief that shapes our world, even today.
And that closes the Concordat of Worms file. 5 parts. One complete story. The full series lives on the Treaty Archive, part of the Archive Network. There's no shortage of files. Browse what pulls at you next.